Hello again and welcome fellow quilters to Patchwork Quilts with Diane. I'm Diane and this video is all about Project Linus and what I got up to there. But before we get into that, I think we'll just have a look at January and have a little review. And this is my journal for January, and I managed to get all of the things I wanted to get done on that page, so I'm very happy there. Now I'm just going to have a review of my Etsy page. And so the total views for January were 496. Last year they were 742. Visits this year were 212. Last year 231. Orders. I didn't have an order, but I have had a commission. I'll tell you about that in a moment. Last year I had 3 orders. Revenue this year is 0. Last year it was £280. Etsy traffic this year is 83% to my site. Last year it was 76%. Direct traffic this year is 17% and last year it was 24%. But I do have that commission quilt and that came in on the end of January. So the figures for Etsy don't look great at the moment, but I think small businesses in general are having a tough time at the moment. I have got that commission quilt. People have started looking recently. That might have something to do with my last YouTube video where I mentioned my Etsy shop. So I think some of you lovely people are going along and having a little look, and you're more than welcome. And if you think there's any tips you could give me to improve it, I'm all ears, not too proud to learn. So everything else I think is up to date for January, all done. So now we're into February. Like I say, I have this commission quilt. I'm still waiting for the fabric. I've ordered some really lovely fabric. I can't wait for that to arrive. I'll show you that when it comes. And so if we look in February, I did say I wasn't going to make a heart quilt for Valentine's this year because I do have one already in my Etsy shop. However, the commission quilt is for a heart quilt. To make a Project Linus quilt, which I did. So I'm a relative newbie to Project Linus. I first became involved with them in September of 2023 and I met the person who's in charge of our local chapter called Kim in Staffordshire, a very nice woman, and I took her some of my quilts and she gave me 5 more labels to go away and make some more quilts, and things in my household were a little bit dodgy to say the least for a while, so I wasn't able to get those quilts or get very much done really over to her. But on the 23rd of January of this year, there was a meeting, so I managed to take 5 of those completed quilts over to her and they appreciated them, and I think they've already got new homes. So she gave me some more labels and I asked for 10. That's a commitment. I won't wait until I've made 10. I will make them in batches and then take them over. But it is a sort of promise, isn't it? I intend to keep doing this. And so when I'd finished all the projects that I wanted to do for January, I had a little bit of time on my hands for the rest of the month while I'm waiting for this fabric to come. And I didn't want to start anything big, so I thought perfect time to come back, have a look at all of my fabric, sort it out, because some of the fabric, the children's fabric, there was bits in my sewing fabric from the Project Linus that I'd set aside, so it all got mixed up. Anyway, so I came back all refreshed and sorted everything out. So I'll show you how I did that if you're interested. Well, I've just taken out all of the fabric that I have that I've set aside for Project Linus. I might take more from my stash if necessary to finish quilts, but I'll show you now in detail what we have. So I've now got this box that I'm keeping all the yardage in, and when I was at Project Linus they gave me some lovely pieces of fabric towards the next quilt. They also gave me some batting as well, so that was great. So that's all for Project Linus now. So in this box I have yardage, fat quarters and 4 3/4 inch squares and my labels. And in this box I've kept fabric that I'm not quite sure whether it's 100% cotton or not. I did buy all of these in a bundle that was meant to be 100% cotton, but it does feel a little bit silky, so it could be either polyester cotton or it could be cotton poplin. I'm not quite sure, but I don't think the children will mind if there's pieces of those in the Linus quilts. And it's the same for this really pretty white with green and pink flowers, but again I think they'll be fine in a little girl's quilt. And there's some of this train fabric. And then in this box, the same, I'm not quite sure what the fabric is made from. And so I have processed this by the look of it. Yep. So I have a number of this ruler width, which perhaps I was thinking of making log cabins for. So I've got quite a few of those. Looks like there's some 4 3/4 inch squares. Oh, and some more strips. I'll have to measure those and see what they come in at. So these are a variety of widths and lengths. So I haven't processed those into any particular order. I've just put those aside. So I'll keep them as they are, I think, for now. Strips of fabric that I've got, tiny pieces left over from projects. And in this box, you can see I've started making squares within squares. I'm not sure whether I'll continue making squares within squares that size, they finish at 3 inches, or whether I might just go around with more fabric and enlarge them. So that's the possibility of another quilt. I mean, some of them have got a nice little centre like that pelican there. And the last box I have is full of partially made blocks. So we'll get those out and have a look and see what we've got in there. So some of these blocks are 3 inch squares that I've put into perhaps an Irish chain in pink and blue. And I've got a couple of packets of 2.5 inch squares that I fussy cut. And there's some odd shaped half square triangles by the look of it. I'm not sure what sizes those are. All sorts by the look of that. And there's another packet with some 3 inch half square triangles in, with children as themed fabric on. And the rest of this box has odd bits of fabric by the look of that. So let's get that out and have a look. So in the bottom of the box there are 2 sample blocks that I've used in a quilt before. So there's a little white daisy, and then there is a planet or rocket themed block. So in this bag I've wrote Friendship Star on. And it looks as though I've processed some of this lovely little animal themed coordinating fabrics to go together to make a Friendship Star quilt. And in this packet there's lots of different vehicle scraps of fabric. I haven't processed them, so they're all different sizes. It looks as if there might be some 3 inch squares, but apart from that, just a selection of vehicles. And this packet just contains 2 small pieces of fabric of llama and koala. Again, not processed, haven't cut into those. And in this packet, it looks like I've got 2 fat quarters and the sheep and this little elephant. Look, glowing stars and little smiley stars. And there's some small bits of fabric of the white with the black polar bears. And there's some of this blue winter. And I've just found another 2 blocks. So there's a red and white pinwheel and a gold, blue and white courthouse steps. And the last packet contains all scraps of dinosaur fabric. So I've put that one into an arrow shape. Not sure what I was thinking there. Got some little hourglass blocks, 4 of those. And some lovely scraps of this gorgeous dinosaur fabric that really we don't want to cut into unless we have to. Okay, I'm going to have a little think about all of this fabric scrap and start making my first Project Linus quilt of 2024. Well, I've put all of those ruler widths and the square within a square in one box. I've processed all of those, and now left on this table all these oddments, and I'm thinking an I Spy quilt, but perhaps like a library. So it's like a library quilt because there's only tiny little fractions of pieces of fabric. So I'm going to look in my yardage and see if I've got a nice dark for the background so that it will showcase all of these different colours. Well, I think I'm going to go with this navy blue and white spot as the background in the bookcase. I'll put white shelves on and a white border around the bookcase. So what I need to do now is work out some dimensions. I think what I need to do is to work out the size of the quilt. We'll have a shelf with vehicles, a variety of, and wildlife, all sorts again, and dinosaurs. So I think that should look quite nice. So once I decided on the background, all I needed to do was make columns, adding that blue with a white dot to the top of the slither of the book that I'd cut out. In the fabric that I had, all the different designs, I tried to incorporate as much of the shape as I could. So some of the books are quite wide for the shelf really, but that's because I was trying to protect the image within that piece. And I'll show you how I made this quilt. This is the design for it, and you can see it's just very, very basic. There's 3 rows, there's a 2-inch shelf in between, and those are the dimensions of each block. So the top 2 rows were the same length, and then the bottom one, it was 11 1/4, and then this one was 13. And then I had 2 blocks that were 10.5-inch wide on each shelf, and 1 block that was 13-inch wide, and the same on the bottom. And then it had a 3-inch border. So very, very simple. Well, I hadn't made one of these library quilts before, and in my mind I just saw it as a 3x3 quilt. And so once I'd worked out the dimensions, the height and the width of each block on each row, it was just a matter of putting these columns together to fill that space. And the first 2 rows came together really quickly, so I'll show you those. And I've made the first 6 blocks, and I've put those in 2 rows of 3. So we have all the vehicles on the top row, and we have the dinosaurs in the middle row, and the animals or creatures will go on the bottom rows. So I'll show you a close-up. It was quite a nice way of using very small pieces of fabric. So some of these were too small to go in an I Spy quilt or odd shapes, but this really is an I Spy quilt in a bookshelf. You could have lots of fun with this. How many wheels can you see? How many red vehicles? How many cranes? How many helicopters? Show me a green dinosaur. Show me a dinosaur that flies. And I did take my time cutting this fabric and looking for the different parts of the fabric in the themed material, because I just kept thinking of the games that a potential child might play with an adult, supporting adult. And I didn't waste time, but it took me a long time because I was playing as an adult with this fabric and I quite enjoyed myself, so I don't mind. And there will be 2 white shelves between the 3 rows, so that'll help to make the blocks stand out. And now what I'm trying to do from a distance is just have a look at the colour distribution. So I'm trying to make sure that there's enough lights and darks spread around. It's just to make sure that these heights of books as they're sitting next to each other, they vary in size. And because the blocks are so easy to put together, I didn't film myself making those, but I did leave the middle one on the bottom shelf free because I was going to try with an angle of a book, and I'll show you how I approach that one. And this strip of lovely blue with these foxes' heads on is exactly 10.5 inches wide. So I think I'm going to start with that as a base, and then I'll build up. I'm going to put them sort of off centre but moving over to the right. So it'd be a bit of a balancing act. And I think it might be good fun to put a book at an angle. So this giraffe could be leaning against a book that's on this side. So I think that would look interesting. So we have a little stack of books, one at an angle, and there's enough allowance there for when I join the next book to it. So that's 10.5 inches wide and 13 inches deep. And the reason I've done that is because I've picked up this bag of little fabric stickers. And so I thought I would sew that onto the top of the books. I think a child might enjoy finding these little stickers. There we have a nice Converse trainer. I think that stack would look nice. And that's it all finished. And I think that'll make a nice little gift for someone somewhere. It's a nice laptop size. It's 38 inches wide, 42 inches deep. Let's go and have a closer look. And I put a 3-inch white border around the outside and 2-inch wide shelves. And those 4 little odd blocks I had with dinosaurs on, they've gone in as cornerstones. I think that's quite nice. So the top shelf is all vehicles. And you can see there's a couple of those little fabric stickers. There's a police car and a train. And then the second row are dinosaurs, and there's a dinosaur sticker on that one. And then the bottom row is all animals and wildlife creatures, and there's a little car and the trainer, and there's a tiny little whale. I wonder if anyone will find that. So I've had loads of fun making this quilt, and I've sewn the label on the back. And I've just used straight line stitching. I thought that would sort of enhance the feel of the books. And this backing, it's 50% cotton and 50% bamboo. And that was a gift from Project Linus. Apparently it washes really well. It's nice and soft. And that's it now. Another week over, another quilt completed. I wasn't expecting that this week, but it came together quite quickly. I did waste a lot of time playing around with the placement of these books, but I think it was worth it. It looks nice, and I'm sure someone will appreciate it, as I appreciate your time. So thank you very much for watching, for keeping me company. Take really good care of yourselves, and I'll see you next week. Bye.